back on, recording in progress. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to take side 1, side 2, and door, which all make rectangles, and we're going to replace them with a new rectangle procedure. So under my blocks, we're going to make a block. We're going to call it rectangle. All right. And what does rectangle need? Well, rectangle needs to know, let's see, what did they do first in those? I think they drew the width first and then the height, is I think the way they were drawn, because we're pointing in direction 90. Yeah. So I'm going to put an input for number, and I'm going to call this width. Now, I know a lot of people that like to keep their variable names short. So some people I know would call that W. And then it's up to you to remember what W means. I think width is a great name for it. So I'm going to do it width. Now, remember, when we see this later, we're not going to see the word width there. We're just going to see an empty circle. So we should label it. So I'm going to add a label next to that. And the label is going to be basically the same thing, width. And then I wanted an input for the height. And when I use this, it's just going to be an empty hole for something. I need to label it. So I'm going to label it as height. And the rectangle also needs to know what is the scale. So we got to throw that in there too. So I'm going to add another input for the scale. And then I'm going to add a label for the scale.
So it's rectangle web, web.
Yeah. Height input, height label, and then scale input, scale label. Something that's very important when you do these, it's case sensitive. So capital scale is different than lowercase scale for inputs. Labels, who cares? That doesn't matter. But for inputs, it matters. Spelling matters. Case matters. All right, I think mine's good. And again, I chose my variables, my inputs, which are also called variables, or parameters in this case, lowercase width, lowercase height, lowercase scale, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so where did it put it? Right up there, define. All right, so I'm going to move that over here. And really what I need to do is just go grab one of these down here. So I'm just going to make a copy of the repeat loop inside 2. I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to stick it under my definition here. Now I got to teach it how to use this. All right. So the repeat twice is because we're going to move horizontally, then rotate 90, then move vertically, and then we just want to repeat that again. So let's see. I need the width to be where the 3 is there. Now, this scale right here is from the other parameter here. So just to be careful, I'm going to pull that out and throw it away. I'm going to pull this scale out and throw it away. And I'm going to use the scale up here. There and there. And I'm doing that just in case any of you named things differently. That's what you would have to do. All right. And then the height, that goes where the 5 is here. And I now have a variable rectangle procedure. How do I use it? Okay, well, let's figure out how to use it. So I just used the code from side 1 to do that. So I'm going to go to my draw define house here. Oh, no, I want, yeah, in there. And I'm just going to go, let's see, side 1 is the first thing that happens. So instead of side 1, what do I want to do? I want to do my rectangle. So I'm going to go grab rectangle. And I'm just going to squeeze it in above that for now. And let's see, what do I need to plug in here? Well, if I look down at the code for side 1 below, it wanted a width of 3 and a height of 5. So then I'm just going to, in here, type a width of 3 and a height of 5. And where does the scale come from? That comes from above. House scale. So my belief, if I set this up right, is this line that says rectangle 3 width, 5 height, scale, scale. That should do the same thing as side 1 scale did before. So I'm just going to pull that off for a sec. I'm going to pull that off side 1. Get that out of the way. So I'm just going to make that one change here, and I'm going to run it and see if it works. Okay. If I went too fast on anything, please let me know. So let's run, and it should look the same if I did it right. All right, it looks the same, so it must be okay so far. So let me blow that up some more in case anyone's having trouble seeing it here. So again, my define rectangle has a text input for width, and then a label for width. The text input for height, a label for height, text input for scale, and a label for scale. I then put my width in for the first part of move, and then I put the scale parameter in for the second part of the multiplication. Same thing down below. My move uses height and scale. And then I just used it here. So I'm going to use it for the door next. So I'm going to go grab my rectangle block. I'm going to put it in. Let's put it in below, see if that's easier. Okay, what is the door? Let's see. The door says move 1 and then move 2. So for door, instead, I want a rectangle with a width of 1 and a height of 2 and a scale from the top. And now I don't need door anymore, so I'm just going to pick up rectangle and stick it on where door was, right? Pull it off, slide it in. It threw door on the bottom, so I'm going to chuck it. So now instead of door, I have rectangle 1 width, 2 height, scale. Okay, so I want you to do the same thing for side 2 and the second door there. And then we're going to try and throw a window. Question, please ask. All right, so here's my completed code. And when I run it, it seems to draw the house just like before. Instead of having side 1 here up at the top and door and side 2 and door, I'm now using the rectangle. The pro is I've replaced 3 blocks of code with 1. That's good coding. The con is that before it said when it was drawing side 1, side 2, and the door, it doesn't say that now. So the way you fix that is you just throw in comments. So I can right click on this rectangle block at the top, and I can add a comment that says, draw the side on the right. You could call it side 1, but side on the right makes more sense to me. Oh, wait, is that my left? That's my left, isn't it? Right, left, yes. Sorry, I have trouble with right and left. I got up and down. That's pretty good. Gravity helps with that. East and west mess with me too. All right, and then this right here would be the door to the left. Door, that's not door. Well, that's kind of a cool spelling for door. Use that in some made-up language. This right here, 9 and 5, that's the side, the big side to the right. Do you have to label these? No, but it makes code more readable if you look at it later, so you can try to figure out what's happening. Otherwise, you got to trace through the code to figure out what's happening, which can be tough. So do you have to comment it again? No, but commenting code can be good practice to help it be more readable when you look at it 6 months later. All right. So what I want to do next is use the rectangle block to make a window. To make a window, I got to figure out where I want to put it, and I got to figure out where my sprite stopped. Well, one good thing about that is if I look at the current position of the sprite, my sprite is at x equals -40, y equals 0. That's where it's sitting right now. So I could just tack on to the end of this after it draws the roof, draw another rectangle. Now, notice after we draw each rectangle or other thing, we change the position somehow. So we got to deal with that. So I'm going to add in a, let's see, let's draw it again to see where it finished drawing. Looks like it was, where is it?
You can tap on the sprite.
Is it right here? Oh yeah, we can make the sprite visible. Oh, he's right there. Okay. Thank you. So we're right there. That must be -40, 0, right there. Yeah, that seems reasonable. So I'm going to put a window right over here by the door. So what I want to do then is have the sprite drop down a bit and then move over a little bit and then draw. Okay, so let's give it a shot. I think I'll just copy this bottom 3 blocks here and use those to do it. All right, so I'm just going to make a guess and then double check in a minute. So what's my scale here? I believe my scale was 20. 20 is the width of the door here. So I want to drop down. I'm going to guess I want to drop down like 60. So I'm going to change Y by 6. Let's see. 60 would be 3 20s. So I think I want to change Y by -3. And again, I'm keeping in mind that when I say draw the house somewhere in my code, where is that? It says make scale set to 20. Okay, so every time we apply scale, it's 20 in this case. All right, and then the X, I want it to move to the right. I'm gonna go just move by 1 scale and see how that looks. And then I'm gonna replace, I gotta zoom out here just a touch to see this. Move you up. I'm going to replace roof with another rectangle. And I'm going to try a 1x1 window scaled. And see what happens. All right, run. Oh, interesting. All right, so I think I want my window a little lower, and I don't think I want that line there. Now, I was thinking move down, then move right, but my code clearly says move right, then move down. Okay, so my brain didn't match what I was doing there because of the way I copied it. So I'm going to move it down a little more. So I'm going to try to change by -4 scales. And what do I have to do before I do this stuff right here? I need to pick up the pen and then put it back down. Otherwise, I'm going to draw a line to where I'm going. Coincidentally, the way the person drew this, they drew it so each thing connected to the next. But my window's not connected to anything. Notice there's no pick up the pen anywhere else. There's just put it down in the beginning. So I'm going to go to my pen, and I'm going to pick the pen up right after the roof. And then I'm going to put the pen down right before I draw that rectangle. And I'm going to run it again. Nice. I like that. Okay. And to do that, I just reuse that rectangle block rather than making a make window block. Okay, which we could have done. That would be all right too. But this uses far less code. So in this version of it, do I need draw define side 1 anymore? Nope, that's done. Goodbye. Do I need to delete a block definition first, remove all uses? Oh, I must have a use of it somewhere around. Okay. All right, so I bet I moved one out of the way and didn't delete it. Ah, there it is. Oops. Remember when I popped that out earlier from my rectangle block, I didn't delete it. Now side 1 should be deletable. Yep. And side 2, I'm pretty sure I pulled that off the screen, so that should be deletable. Yep. Yeah, so that's nice. Scratch warns me, hey, you're about to delete a definition that you're using. Don't do that. And I don't need the door anymore because my rectangle's doing it. Yep. Okay, so my new code has a lot less blocks. And there's going to be a homework problem that you're going to do where you're going to draw a different house. If you want, you can modify this code, or you could just start from scratch to do it. Scratch, did it. From a blank project, an empty one, an untitled one. You have a couple options. So let's see, how are we doing on our reading assignment? I think we just finished it, didn't we? I think that's at the end of this. Oh, yeah, the flour flake. We'll go over that next class because I think we're running out of time. Reading assignment. Okay. So again, before you answer these questions, I would recommend reading the book. We did flowers 2. We did checkers and we're able to change the orientation with 2 tweaks. And we just modified house to use a single rectangular block instead of a bunch of named rectangle blocks. And that idea of doing stuff like that, the flower and the house is what we call structured programming, where we break our code up into these manageable pieces. And we usually name them in ways that it makes sense to our code to do so that when we look at it 6 months later, it's not as hard to figure out what the heck were we doing. Because I'll tell you, there are some days I get this idea and I just start plowing away at code on my idea. And then oh yeah, it looks like it works pretty good. And then I'll come back to it later. A month later, I go back to it. And because I didn't think about structuring it, I look at what I thought about that night and I'm like, Gary, what were you thinking? What does this do? And it's going to take me like 3 hours to figure out what I was trying to do if I don't structure it properly. Okay. And that takes a lot of practice. Structure. Pause.